We'll open today's meeting, Licence and Regulatory Committee. Can I just remind members that we're having live streaming today, and it's going to be recorded. So please could you use your microphones, and remember this is potentially going out to the public. And before we start, on the agenda today, we've got one public member here. So I think it's best if we introduce ourselves at the beginning of the meeting. So I'm County Councillor Linda Guppy for Roggett Ward, and this is Sandra Birchall from Bushell, from Chepstow Town Council. Okay. Ralph, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Ralph.
Could you use your microphones, please?
Jim Higginson, member of 7 Ward, Caldicott.
Pauline Watts, Caldicott Castle Ward.
John Prosser, Chairman of the Council and also member for Priory Abergavenny.
Chris Ryan, I'm Senior Licensing Officer for Monmouthshire County Council.
David Jones, Head of Regulatory Services, Monmouthshire Council.
Pat Perkins, Legal Advisor to the committee.
Brian Strong, Vice Chairman of the Licensing Committee.
Okay, agenda item 1, apology for absence.
Councillor Dave Evans, Madam Chairman. He's in hospital currently.
We've also received apologies from Councillors Taylor, Howarth, Hickman, Webb and Edwards.
Can I take any declarations of interest?
As and when, Madam Chairman.
Can we confirm the accuracy of the minutes from the licensing meeting held on the 29th of July?
I'm prepared to move them, Madam Chairman.
I second, Madam Chair.
All true accuracy?
Madam Chair, can I, just one thing. My title, it's hard to keep up, I know, is now Head of Regulatory Services on the last minutes. And can I just comment on the last minutes just regarding Mr. Frost, if you remember, the scrap metal dealer that wasn't approved on the day. Just to advise members, the application fee was refunded. And could I appeal to members if they do see him out and about, if you let us know, because obviously you'd be trading without the proper licence. I know Mr. Chapman, I think Councillor Chapman had met him in Caldicott some time ago, Mr. Frost. So if members can just be aware, be a constituent, lets you know if Mr. Frost is trading, if you just let us know, please. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, on that one, could I just say I sent out a communication to the appropriate area I considered yesterday regarding that particular gentleman, if I put it that way. I have suspicions that he may not be in compliance regarding scrap metal collection. I could be wrong, but it's just what I've seen. I've reported, and officers will be investigated, I'm sure of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I just reiterate, if there's any issues with anybody trading or driving, can we report it to the relevant officers? And if it's safety, obviously, to the police. Thank you. Sorry. Agenda item number 4, to consider the application form for annual block trading consent.
Madam Chairman, the purpose of this application is to consider the block street trading consent applied for by Mrs. Bushell with regard to areas in Chepstow, namely Beaufort Square, Bank Square, Cormayell Square, High Street and Library Place, Manor. The key issues with regard to this is that an application has been received from Mrs. Bushell to trade on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday between the hours of 9 a.m. and 1500 hours in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, The locations requested are those that I outlined: Beaufort Square, 4 pitches; Bank Square, 2 pitches; Cornwall Square, 10 pitches; High Street adjacent to the gatehouse, 1 pitch; High Street subject to a road closure in place, 10 pitches; and the Library Place, Manor Way, 3 pitches. The applicant has indicated that the High Street trading will be subject to road closures in order to create a pedestrianised area, and is likely to take place on the last weekend of the month, mainly during the summer months. However, if the consent is granted, the area could be used on the days each week mentioned in 3.1 above. The applicant has further stated that if the consent is granted, she will ensure pitch holders will comply with the council conditions for this consent. The application has been forwarded to the consultees, being Heather Gwent Police, Monmouthshire Highways Department, Monmouthshire Planning, Environmental Health, Area Services Manager, and the local ward member. They declined to comment other than planning, saying that no objections to the application. However, planning permission will be required if trade-in for more than 14 calendar days in the year. It should be noted that the planning restriction should not be considered when deciding on the issue of this consent. However, if granted, the applicant will be made aware of the further provisions required of them due to the planning legislation. Under Section 13 of the Street Trading Policy adopted by MCC on the 17th of June 2014, it states that the Head of Community Environmental Protection can determine an application or defer the matter for the Licensing and Regulatory Committee as we're here today. The Head of the Community and Environmental Protection, recently retitled Head of Regulatory Services, Mr. Dave Jones here. Do you want a round of applause? No, okay. Has decided in this instance to defer the matter to the Licensing and Regulatory Committee for a decision due to the application being a new application for permanent consent, which will include a number of pitches with a wider potential impact. Under Schedule 4 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982 Part 3, there is no right of appeal against the refusal to grant or renew a consent, or against the revocation or variation of a consent. As there is no statutory right of appeal, the applicant has the right to seek judicial review. As a judicial review is largely about the decisions making process, it is difficult to see how any judicial review application could be made when the applicant understands the reasons for the member's decision. The District Council is under no duty to grant a street trading consent and need not specify statutory grounds for refusal. However, in the case of RV, the Mayor and commonality of the citizens of the City of London ex parte Matson, the court highlighted the need for decision makers to give reasons in the interests of fairness and to enable judicial review proceedings to become available if necessary. That's the report as outlined, ma'am. You may find, in addition to that, on Appendix A there is a street map which outlines the areas being asked for today. And in Appendix B is a draft version of the application for block street trading consent, which Mrs. Bushell has completed, and also the Chepstow Town Council application for a day market pitch as an outline for yourself to have a look at and see that the requisite parts are there. That's it, ma'am.
Thank you. Can I just ask members, were they able to see where the pictures were on the map? It didn't come out particularly clear.
Yeah, I can read it quite
Yeah.
well, thank you.
Okay. Before we take questions, perhaps we'd like to introduce the clerk to give an overview or a reason why this application could be a benefit for the town, and maybe include highlighting any issues that they possibly have encountered or potentially sort of look to encounter and to rectify.
Right, yes. The Town Council has for some considerable time now tried to encourage and promote a local producers market. And we have done that primarily in Cormay Square. That has sort of come in and out of favour with the number of stallholders and support. I think it's on, it is certainly on the increase again. We want to do that because we want to obviously encourage local farmers, local producers, but also bring greater footfall into the town and provide really sort of fresh, locally produced, relatively low-cost produce for shoppers in Chepstow. So that is where we sort of started from. What we have become aware of course, is the change in the County Council's licensing fee structure, such that those individual stallholders would find it incredibly difficult to continue to trade if they had to pay the day pitch fees themselves. I mean, you'd have to sell an awful lot of pots of jam to make your £41, pitch fee. We currently, for the stores or for the markets that we specifically look after, we provide their stall, their sort of pop-up tent, etc., so we know what the quality is and we keep an eye on them. We are aware that there are other markets that have sprung up through the town on different days. I mean, I'm primarily concerned with the trading at the moment on the second and fourth Saturdays of the month, the local farmers market. There is also a country market that tells me they've been trading in the town for, forever virtually. And it is part of the old WY format. They would like to continue trading, but they don't have the mechanism or the funding to do so without our support by coming under this sort of a licence arrangement. They currently trade on occasional Fridays, on certain times of the year, but usually on the first and third Saturdays of the month, so they don't conflict with the farmers. Chepstow Marketing Committee, in addition, has, since regeneration, and part of the regeneration scheme was to create areas of the town that would be conducive to holding markets, to bring Chepstow back as a market town. They have been allowing one or two pitch holders to work on a Friday and Thursday and Friday in the town. Now, at the moment, we have nothing really to do with them, but I'm quite aware that there is no control over who turns up and quite what is going on there. And so I can only see it being an advantage if, shall we say, everyone comes under the same regime and there is an element of consistency and, shall we say, sort of some control. Because at the moment I have no idea who's pitching up and going where. As I say, I think the idea is to try and increase footfall into the town, try and make Chepstow a more vibrant place, and to recognise its heritage as a market town, but also, to support local producers. And that's where we're coming from.
Thank you.
Could I just add to that? I know that Peter Farley, local member, Graham Perry and Linda O'Gorman visited Mrs Bushell to go through that, and one of the things was the cost is quite prohibitive, as explained. £41 per pitch would be over £1,200, and if you're selling jams and local honey, that's going to knock it on the head. So I think we're trying to find the middle ground, regularise what's going on down there. I think a lot of activity has already occurred. So I think probably from the licensing perspective, it does give us an opportunity to, as Mrs Bushell's rightly described, to sort of bring everyone to even keel. And the other issue I think for us is, unlike Abergavenny market, it's not for us to do this, the packing up, and which is quite onerous. That would be for the town council to do that. And I think that's again one of the themes of the local authorities, to try and give others responsibility. So that's why I know Councillor Farley was very supportive. Thank you.
Councillor Higginson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it's commendable that Chepstow Town Council, via their clerk, Mrs Bushell, have decided to go down this route. For those who are living closer to Chepstow and many other members, we get in there occasionally. I think it's good to see the stores that are there when they are there. And as Mrs Bushell said, it does enhance the attraction of Chepstow to visitors to the town. I don't have any problem with this. I know these areas fairly well, and on that basis, I think that I don't see any issue why we can't grant this, and I'm proposing we accept this application.
Councillor Prosser.
Thank you, Chair. The initiative is good in the fact that it sort of devolves responsibility to Town Council and enables them to control their patch, which we all know about devolution of services in these trying financial times. One thing that is missing here, I think, which I just want further clarification on, is the local Chamber of Commerce, because a lot of traders in the town pay rates, and one would argue high rates, but there's always an argument about how high rates are. And they pay those rates in order to sell things like pots of jam or whatever. And so if all of a sudden you've got market stalls all over the town who may not be charged with those rates but are selling the same things, if I was one of the traders, I'd have something to say about it. So I don't see in here any response from the Chamber of Commerce or local Chamber of Trade. So I would like to see that response. Obviously, if somebody was selling ice creams and then put their stall up outside an ice cream shop, I'd say, hang on, we've got something wrong here, and therefore I'd want to make sure that that doesn't happen. I'm not sort of doubting the integrity of the Town Council, but I'm saying those situations could develop, and we need to have the right rules in place to accommodate them. So I would seek some advice on the Chamber of Commerce.
Does anybody want to answer that? Or
Possibly, can I just start with that, perhaps? I know Alan Brown obviously he's now left the authority, and we do tend to rely on the local area service manager for the local flavour, if you like. Obviously, myself, Chris Ryan and others deal with the licensing aspect. We do rely on Alan Brown and Tom James, sorry. It's not unusual. Up north. So we do tend to rely on that in terms of the area services manager, but I think probably the town clerk would be best to answer that one.
Yeah. We are working closely with the Chamber of Commerce and the Marketing Committee. The Marketing Committee being our joint committee of the town, the county, representatives, members, that is, officers and the traders themselves. And in actual fact, they were on occasions providing the funding for some of the entertainment that I was putting on when we have the market. So we have their backing. We did, I'll be perfectly frank, I think the first large market I did make a mistake. I allowed a lady selling hot wraps to go outside a new shop that was apparently selling cold wraps. I had no idea. It was advertised as the orange crate. I had no idea, but I learnt my lesson. So we have, we are, as I say, we are working closely with them. It is a joint initiative. We did, we undertook, what do you call it, a benchmarking exercise, now almost 18 months ago, I would say, where we employed Action for Market Towns to come in and to do a benchmarking exercise on the town, at which we identified markets were a good thing. Following on from that, we have given we held a town meeting for traders in which we outlined our proposals to do this and got feedback. At that meeting, there was a lot of support for the monthly road closure. So we started off, and we're having markets with road close once a month. We've now had some feedback that perhaps some traders aren't happy with the road closures. So hence we have, for the last 2 markets, held them without closing the road, but in the specific squares that we've identified. So all I'm saying in response is I do think the Chamber is on board with us. We are listening to their comments, and the Town Council has undertaken to review the way it's running its markets with we now have something called the Retail Forum. The Retail Forum, the Chamber and the Marketing Group in November, and to take on board their feedback as to the way we go forward. But of course, the issue of going forward doesn't arise until we've had, the outcome of whether the licensing is in place. So I think, in answer to your question, yes, we are mindful of where we locate stores and what products that are on offer, to be sensitive to traders. And so far I've had, as I say, apart from the one bad experience, there is an argument, it was quite interesting. We were not directly involved, but we had a community group who had a flea market in the high street. And initially there was a lot of concern from shops selling vintage type goods as to whether this would be actually competition. In actual fact, they said in hindsight that it brought so many people in looking for that sort of item that their business was better on the day. So again, it's feedback and being responsive to the feedback that we're getting, which is what we're trying to do.
And can I remind members as well that in the policy that we agreed in June, it specifically says about trading and the distance away from shops if they're selling specific goods, and obviously that'll be well monitored within the department, and obviously to the advantage of the shops and the traders. It wouldn't be any good next to each other. Councillor Pauline Watts, thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that I'll definitely support your proposal, right? I mean, you do a lot of work. The citizens are glad that you're putting these things there for them. Keep them in Chepstow if necessary, but don't forget we got Asda opening in Caldecott soon. No, definitely. The farmers are there, the little people coming from one small garden bringing produce in. I mean, it's given everybody a fair share. So yes, I would definitely support that.
Okay. Mrs. Perkins, got a comment.
Members, if I could just remind everybody, I know it won't affect your decision making on the actual licensing, but there would need to be a traffic order in place if the road is going to be closed 4 days a week, and that is quite a lengthy and expensive process, and it isn't always guaranteed success.
There is no intention to have a traffic order to close the road 4 days a week. We currently are working with the County Council, and it's part of, as well, another initiative, which is the air quality management group that meets, was to try closing the high street once a month just to see what the impact was on our problem air quality area of Hardwick Hill. The road closure is in, order has gone through. Myself and my staff and a number of community volunteers have been trained in closing roads. So we have all the mechanism in place should we want to carry on closing the roads once a month.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I was just pointing out the fact that if this was granted, there could be no activity on High Street outside that current traffic order.
Can I just sort of ask for clarity? Even though if this licence was granted that we could you could trade from Thursday to Sunday every day, from what you're telling me, this is not your intention, although that's what you could do, that you're going to take this as a monthly, in which case there's 12 days in the month. I know that we're not here to consider planning application, but there's 12 days in total then, but the planning says 14 days. Are you intending to apply for planning anyway? And I don't want you to discuss the planning application or any implications. Thank you.
No, perhaps I haven't made it clear. What's happening at the moment is on Thursdays and Fridays, there are probably a couple of stores going on at Beaufort Square, and they're currently run by the Marketing Committee, which is, as I say, it's this joint committee of county, town and traders. They will, I guess, continue to trade, subject to planning now, of course, on a Thursday and Friday, weekly. The country market currently trades, as I said, twice a month, sometimes 1 or 2 days, sometimes a Friday and a Saturday. And then our market trades on twice a month. So we're already over, by the sound of things, the 14 days. What I will have to go back to the town council is say, well, we now need to consider planning, or we need to review how many markets we're going to have. We've got an option. We can actually say to everyone, we'll only have a market once a month and you all be part of the same market, or if we want to have these various days of trading, then we'll have to give the planning. We certainly at the moment there are no proposals to trade on a Sunday. It was just suggested that I put Sunday in just to be safe in case we really became so successful.
Councillor Higginson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I mean, I think we are into areas that are not really anything to do with this particular application, which is dealt with separately. And the reason I say that is, as a member of the planning committee, and we're not discussing planning issues, and I don't want us to go down that route. Because that's separate. That's a separate matter. I don't have anything to add other than what I said. I'm prepared to move that we accept this application. I said I know the area is concerned, and it does enhance the Chepstow area. People do visit Chepstow as a consequence of these markets. So I'm quite prepared to move that we accept this proposal.
Councillor Prosser.
Yes, I'm minded to accept this because it's all about regeneration and a market town and wonderful. Let's have all the local producers coming in, etc., as long as we've talked to the right people. Just one final word of clarification. Obviously, the local authority retains the legal obligation on food hygiene regulations, etc., to do inspections, etc. And I think in your terms of reference for a stall, I think it would be useful to have a phrase in there that says applicants should be reminded that they should comply with all due legislation on trading standards and food hygiene regulations, if it's not already in there. Thank you.
If there's no further questions, then I've had a proposal and a seconder that we take this application form and agree it. I don't think there's any further questions. Will you please all show hands in response to this application? Okay, thank you, members. That's a unanimous decision. And you'll work with the officers to take this through, and good luck, and thank you for coming today.
Madam Chair, that concludes the live streams, is it? Yeah?
Take to note of the time in the meeting, 25th of November 2014 at 10 o'clock, and then that'll end the meeting and the live streaming. Can I just ask the members to stay behind for 5 minutes?
Madam Chair, I was hoping to raise an issue at the licensing committee, as I suggested earlier, seeking clarification before the end of the meeting. May I advise the committee?
Yeah.
Basically, it's about a particular area on my patch in Abergavenny where there's a petrol station, and it was given 24-hour alcohol licence. Now, in Abergavenny, there have been various initiatives to try and reduce antisocial behaviour. We've introduced alcohol-free areas, especially in Bailey Park. this petrol station is next to Bailey Park, and I've had some nuisance acknowledgement from local residents about what happens when the town pubs are shut and they come up via the garage and refill, if you like, with alcohol. Why I'm raising this is because I'm the local member, I'm also on the licensing committee, and it was fait accompli. The first thing I knew about a 24-hour licence was when a resident complained to me and told me about it. And I thought, well, how is that? I'm on the licensing committee, I'm a local member, and I knew nothing about it. And I've been to ad pack meetings with the police, and I thought, you know, the initiatives we've had over the years, if somebody had come to me, I'd say we've got to think very carefully about this particular one, because it's in a very sensitive area. And yet when I inquired of the officers, I was told that, no, this was authorised. And I said, well, when is it up for renewal? Oh, no, it's a life authorisation unless you can prove there's something wrong with it. So I'm a little bit concerned as a local member. I just want clarification of what the procedure is, and how does such an application get through without the local member or the committee seeing it when it was such a sensitive one. I just ask for clarification on that.
Could I ask, John, because this is not open for debate on the agenda, that you receive some clarification in a form of email in response to your question?
I'm happy for that, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity.
Just to reply to Councillor Prosser, it's a new one on me, so I'll need to go back and speak to Linda and Sam Wynne, who's Chris's equivalent in Abergavenny. I presume they must have altered the house, Chris, in terms of the existing. Maybe Chris can enlighten us.
Yeah, I didn't actually deal with this because it's not in my area, but there is the company that owns that particular petrol station has one in my area, and they've also gone to 24 hours.
Yeah.
The procedure is laid down by law, so we are duty bound to stick within that procedure. And the council member is not a list on the regulated applicants. So we would be going outside the law and ultra vires if we did that.
Okay.
I think that's the case, sir.
We'll clarify that, John.
I'm using it against the wall. Didn't know anything about it.
There's nothing else on the agenda that we really need to debate at the moment, so I'm going to close the meeting at the moment. If there's any further questions, can you take it to the officers and deal with outside the meeting? Thank you. I just remind members the live streaming is not turned off at the moment?